Hey, good day everyone. Welcome to the Magi Show. I've got a really exciting guest lined up for today's show. It's Kindra. I met her on Facebook and we're going to be talking about near-death experiences and some information about standing stones and also about ancient texts too. So really looking forward to this show. Maybe I'll just try to get the show shared a little bit here, but before I call Kindra, share the link with her, make sure that she's got it. Well, it looks like she's got it now. She's joined. So I'm just going to share the show to a couple other pages here. I hope you guys can bear with me. If anyone else can share the show onto their pages too, or other groups, that'd be a big help. Let's see. I've got it shared there. Now I'm starting to get a bigger and bigger list of people asking me to share the show in their groups, so it'll just take me a couple of seconds here to get this going. Now, it's funny, when I used to do the show on YouTube, it's like they gave you the link and you could share it in advance, like way before the show starts. But so far, the way I've got everything set up here on Facebook, it works great. But just having to share it at the last minute, it's a little bit difficult, but making it through all right, I think. Now, I'm going to share it to the conspiracy group. I know a few friends of mine in that group are into near-death experiences, so I figure I'll share the link with them. I think Daniel was asking me to share the show on his page, so we can do that next too. Just going to adjust my volume here. There we go. Alright, what other groups? I think I got one more to share and then I'm going to call Kindra. Oh yeah, the Adept Initiates group. Can't forget to share it to that one. Yeah, if anyone hasn't heard of Adept Initiates before, it's the page that I do writing blogs for and do field research for too. So if you want to check that out, the Adept Initiates Facebook page and the official website, that'd be really cool if you could check that out. Not just my blogs, but there's a lot of other people that do awesome writing on there, like Karina does and Carrie, a bunch of other people. Yeah, sorry, just getting distracted. Alright, so that's shared to Adept Initiates, and yeah, I guess I'll share it to one more group quick. Yeah, I hope everyone's doing alright today. It seems like in America here, in North America, we're getting quite a lot of storms today. Kindra was actually worried that she wouldn't be able to be on the show today because of the big storm, but so far so good. Yeah, and then we got that big electrical storm everyone's talking about tomorrow too. I don't know, it's funny, I never usually feel energy, or so to speak, but man, this last one, I don't know what it is. Never felt anything quite like it before. Okay, so that's everything shared on Facebook. Now I'm just going to link the chat here so that if anyone wants to join in the chat, they can. I know the last show we tried the chat and it didn't work, so keeping my fingers crossed here that it works this time. I did some tests earlier today and it worked fine every time, so see how it works now. Alright, it's saying it's connected. If anyone wants to type a message in the chat, we'll test to see if this is working. Here I can comment. Yeah, sorry everyone that you can hear me typing. So far I got a quiet mouse to use for the show, but I don't have a quiet keyboard yet, so working on that. Oh, let's see, Facebook Live comments. There we go. 608, yeah, that's the right one. It looks like the chat's big enough for everyone to read. That's good. Alright, now I'll just set up the Facebook reactions. This is the first time I've tried this on the show. Got it working in the test too, so why not? I'll give it a shot, see if it works for today. Alright, let's try this. Facebook reactions. Yeah, it's kind of cool to be able to see the reactions from the audience, so I hope this works. Come on. There we go. All right, all set. I think I got the chat working and the reactions, so keeping my fingers crossed it keeps working and we'll be able to chat with everyone during the show this time. All right. All right, next, with no further delays, I'm going to try calling Kindra. If everyone wants to help pray to the Skype cloud so that we get a good connection going. All right, let's try calling Kindra. I just noticed that I forgot to play some of my sound effects to start off the show, but I think we'll still be all right. Shouldn't take long to contact Kindra. Worked really well the first call. Oh, there you are. Hey, Kindra. Welcome to the Magic Show. Thanks for coming. So I told the audience a little bit how I met you. I guess it was on Facebook. And here, I'm getting a double window here. I'm just going to close that. Oh, there we go. Right, yeah, so I met you on Facebook, and we were talking about ancient mysteries and some of your near-death experience stuff, and I thought it was really fascinating, so I'm really happy that you managed to make the time to come on the show. Really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm honored to be asked to have been on, Leland. I watched the Magi show on YouTube before and was just so excited. You know how excited I was. I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding? Are you kidding?
Oh, I really appreciate that.
So I was thrilled.
Now, I did notice that we're getting a little bit of interference on the microphone, so maybe I'll just give you a quick call back on Skype and see if we can get a better connection going.
That sounds good.
All right, because I want to make sure the connection is just right here for us, so I'll call you back in 2 seconds, okay?
Oh, okay, great.
That call quality was pretty good, but just going to try calling her back and see if we can get a stronger signal going. Okay, I think we're back now. Alright, there you are.
We are. How does that sound?
Yeah, that's a lot better. My signal strength is coming in with a yellow caution before, so I figured I might as well start off right, make sure we get that resolved.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I heard briefly your interview on, what was the show that you just did recently, the Watchers Talk?
Watchers Talk, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I highly recommend everyone going into their archive and checking out that video. It was really awesome. So, just for any of my viewers that didn't see your previous interview, how did you get started in this? I guess this was with your near-death experiences?
It really was. And the way that I got started was by having two within probably an hour and a half of one another. I had a massive heart attack, and I arrived at the hospital essentially a DOA. When I was going through the experience, and I have had other near-death experiences that were nothing like this.
Wow.
In this one, I was just suddenly on the other side, and a being came toward me and was holding a bundled baby in their arms, and I looked at the baby, and I knew immediately this was a future grandson of mine. I took him in my arms and was hugging him and kissing him, and I just looked up at this person and I said, please, can I go back? I want to go back and be with him.
Yeah.
And she just pointed straight ahead and like behind me, and I turned around and I was suddenly back.
Well, what did this being look like? Was it like a person or?
Very interesting. I would have to describe this as get my words out, an androgynous being.
Okay.
This being, I thought of in terms of female only because of the nurturing and love that I was feeling in the person's presence.
Okay.
But looks-wise, very different. Neither male nor female, very thin. Just very interesting look to this person.
Wow. So were they like really scary to look at, or how were you?
No, not at all. No, all I felt, the only thing I felt was love, pure love. So
That's
no,
good.
this wasn't frightening. There was nothing frightening about any of this. At least not these last two. In about, like I said, about an hour and a half later, after they got me out of the cath lab and they had me back and had me stented.
Well, looks like we just got a little bit of a cutout here. Kindra, are you still able to hear me, or? Yeah, I'm not sure what happened to our Skype connection. Looks like we might have to try a call back, or I'll see what mine's looking like here. Yeah, it looks like the Skype froze up again. Are you still with us, Kindra? Okay. Yeah, it looks like...
I am still with you, yeah.
Okay. I don't know if it's maybe the storm in your area that's acting up a little bit, because...
I was just going to say, I bet it is the storm.
Okay. Well, we'll keep going, because like I was able to hear you perfectly.
Surprising.
Yeah, we just lost you there right when you were telling us like what the person looked like, and then you were going on from there.
Right. So I had been taken from the cath lab to the recovery room, cath lab recovery room. In that recovery room, I coded again. This time, again, I was just immediately on the other side. And a being very similar, but not the same being, came toward me and was holding the hand of a little boy that was like 3 or 4 years old. And I knew that was my grandson again.
Wow.
So I just dropped to my knees and hugged him and kissed him and sat down and was playing with him and talking to him, had him on my lap. And once again, I looked up, and before I could even say I wanted to go back, this person said, "You can go back." But a gentleman leans over and it says, "Come with me first." And he took me by my hand and we began walking. That was when I realized that this was my father. This, not my earthly father. My earthly father is very much alive. This was my spiritual father. He took me, and it was as though I could suddenly see all these dimensions. There were multitudes of dimensions.
Yeah, I've heard of this concept before. Yeah, sort of like how
I would say I was looking at least 6 or 7. Go ahead, Leland, please.
I was just going to say that when you talked about these different layers of dimensions and stuff, it reminds me sort of how the ancients talked about the sacred tree and how it went in different dimensions or levels.
Exactly.
Yeah. So sorry to interrupt you. You were talking about that?
No, it was amazing to me. I was shocked to see all these dimensions. And in one of them, or all these levels, I should say.
Yeah.
In one of these levels, people were asking for the opportunity to return to the earth to do what they hadn't completed.
Wow.
Obviously, we all have free agency in this world. So when we get here and we're blinded by this veil, we don't necessarily realize the promises we made before we came here. And the thing I always like to tell people is, you know what those promises are because they're in you. They're in your heart.
Yeah.
So the best thing you can do is look within yourself for what your purpose is. In the world of near-death experiences, there are no two that are alike. I haven't had 2 that were alike, and I've had 6. So,
wow.
you know, it's Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. But as he was showing me the different layers or levels,
Yeah.
I saw these people asking to come back, and our Father was saying, absolutely. It was a sensation of, I love you enough to want you to have all the opportunity you need, all the chances that you can have to be able to ascend to greater levels.
Yeah. So you believe in reincarnation then, right?
I didn't until then. I absolutely did not believe in it until then.
Yeah.
And I it kind of makes sense in a lot of ways because it kind of helps me understand dreams I had growing up that I couldn't explain. I kept thinking, oh, this must be going to happen to me in my lifetime. But I realized there's no way that, as I was getting older and older, I'm going, well, that couldn't happen. That's not going to happen. So I began wondering, I wonder if it had already happened and I'm just getting a glimpse of that. But, just to me, the important thing was realizing that we're loved so much that we get that opportunity.
Yeah.
I think in the world of, we combine the world of religions and the world of our planet versus other planets, creationism versus Big Bang Theory. The one thing we need to try to get away from is the either or principle.
Yeah.
We need to stop saying, is it this or is it that?
No, it reminds me.
Chances are the answer's both.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Asian symbol, the Tai Chi, where it's like black and white circle with a little bit in each. And how people argue in politics, how it's always either the left or the right. It's like, it's usually always somewhere in the middle. That's what we're supposed to be looking for. But people these days seem to get really polarized to either one side or the other, right?
They do tend to get polarized, but I think, and that brings up a really good point that I wanted to make tonight too, is
Sure.
besides staying away from an either-or concept, is that there seems to be a gathering occurring among people that are truth seekers, people that know and understand that what they've been feeling in their hearts all along is contrary to what we're being fed through the media and through the world.
Yeah, like the fake news everyone's talking about.
Pardon?
Like fake news, how everyone talks about that, right?
Absolutely. And that's just one example. When I was being led around on this tour, so to speak, the second time around, I asked a lot of questions. I asked, and I had mentioned this on the other show, that I asked what religion is true. What religion is true on this earth?
What response did you get?
My father, sort of waved his hand in the air, and when he did, these baskets appeared. And each basket contained a religion, so to speak.
Okay.
And he took a basket that he had in his arm, and he took a pinch out of each basket and kept putting it into his basket. And he turned to me when he was done, and he says, here it is. It's right here. It's not what everyone thinks it is.
Yeah.
It's everything. It's combined. And, I thought that was really a beautiful idea. And at one point, in ascending these levels, another man joined him, and I was just all excited and looked at him and I said, you must be Jesus, and you must be God. And the response was, we're known by many names.
Wow. Incredible.
Of course you are. You are known by many names. I get it. I did not, and part of me kind of understood that there had to be a whole lot more to what was real than what we were being spoon-fed by the world.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense because I do a lot of different research for adept initiates about different religions, or I guess ancient pagan traditions all around the world, and it seems like each one of them has a little bit of truth to it with a whole lot of dogma mixed into it as well, right? So I noticed, yeah, even the Freemasons, when they do their work, they're often saying that they don't believe in one particular religion, but that each religion has some truth to it, and that's why they compare them all, and that they don't like saying that one's better than the other. So,
right.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. And those baskets, did that look like those Anunnaki baskets those guys carry around? Or I don't know if you've seen those before.
This was almost like, if you can kind of picture just a rounded wicker basket.
Okay, cool.
And each basket was filled. And he just took a sprinkle of each of those baskets.
Yeah.
And it was just, I don't know, I'm sure he was just showing me, the way that he felt I would understand the concept that they each have truth to them.
Yeah.
But as a whole standing alone, that was not something to be following, but rather to be open-minded to the many concepts.
Wow. Now, I just thought of one question here, maybe before we get on to the show too much further. I just got a bunch of slides ready for today, and one of them happened to be, the tunnel image. I guess, did you happen to see the tunnel image at all when you had your experience, or?
I did not on the last two, however, I did it on the first. That was suspended above my body looking down at myself. But the others in between, the three others in between, were passing through a tunnel.
Wow.
Now, interestingly enough, this tunnel, the first time I saw it was just darkness. I knew I was moving upward through a tunnel, and there was a bright light at the end of that tunnel.
Okay.
The next experience, the tunnel I could see rotating and was a blue color and just spinning. And I thought how cool that looked.
No kidding.
The time after that, when I crossed over, it was blue again. And I thought to myself, I can feel myself walking, but I feel nothing beneath my feet.
Wow.
So I looked at the sides of the tunnel, and I realized they had this look almost like a plasma. So I reached my hands out and just drug it along the edges. And, my hands just moved right through it, almost like a gel feeling.
Wow.
It was very cool. But the last two times when I had the heart attacks were instant, I'm there. There was no tunnel crossing. It was just, boom, I was there.
Yeah, it reminds me, I've done a little bit of work with out-of-body experiences, and the first few times I did it, it's like you could almost feel yourself come out of your body and then float around.
Absolutely.
And then a few times after that I tried, it was almost like you were instantly already somewhere and you didn't see yourself come out of your body. So yeah, that really reminds me of that. I wonder if there's some sort of connection, maybe.
Perhaps. I know that the first time I was dead for at least 8 minutes. The ambulance had to be called, had to come get me. The ambulance bypassed the house. My son had to go tearing down the road and chase the ambulance down and get them to follow him back. Evidently, they tried working on me while I was at the house and decided to load me up and get me to the hospital fast because they could not. They were shocking me and doing CPR and could not get anything, which is why I said I was DOA at the hospital.
Jeez.
Interestingly enough, the cardiac crew that was standing there waiting at the ER bay doors had been my coworkers. So I was an I was an EKG tech at that hospital in the past. So, they told me afterwards that they tried several attempts, and when they didn't get me back, they started packing me on ice to to thicken the blood.
Yeah.
What they said, to thicken up the blood. And evidently, they started hearing a very faint pulse when they got me packed on ice. He said, "We don't think you like the ice." I said, "No, I know I don't like ice. I don't like it in my drinks. I don't like it on my body." So that was a very interesting thing. But then they went in and like I said, they got me back when I was in the cath lab, which is catheterization, cardiac cath lab. When I was coded in their recovery room, they went through their normal 3 rounds of trying to get me back. And, the last thing that you do is you shock the patient.
Yeah.
And they had delivered yet another shock, and everyone's hands were cleared, and the lead nurse says, "We have nothing, should we call it?"
Holy.
And the doctor said to me, once I was awake and recovered, a little bit recovered, he said to me, I looked down at you and I said, "She's one of us. We can't. We got to try again."
Wow.
And thankfully they did.
Yeah, no kidding. Jeez.
Yeah.
No, it's pretty scary how easily sometimes the hospital gives up on people, but I guess they're in that field of work where they've seen it so many times before, right? But geez.
Well, there is a point you kind of have to reach when you're doing this. This is extremely exhaustive and taxing on everybody doing the work. So it's a very lengthy process.
Yeah.
It takes time to try to reach that point. But the one thing I want to just jump back and say for any viewers out there that didn't know about this, but I said that I was meeting my grandson as an infant and then recognized him as a 3 to 4 year old toddler.
Yeah.
I went into a coma after, they induced the coma after they got me back the second time. And when I came out of my coma, I turned to my daughter, and one of the first things I said is, "I've been with your son." Now, the interesting thing is, he had not been born.
Oh.
And in my brain, I thought, well, she's got to be pregnant. She wasn't. He came 3 years later and looked exactly the same.
Holy.
So, yeah, that's where this near-death experience, these last 2, are just so different from any others that I've heard of. I haven't met too many people that have met people that haven't come here yet.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I was just going to mention quickly that the chat seems to be cutting out a little bit, so I'm just going to read the messages here that we got from the viewers so far. Sherry was saying hi, Omar was saying hi, a bunch of people are watching, and so I'm going to try to get the chat going again as we go, but I'm not sure why exactly it keeps cutting out. All right, but
it's the storm.
Yeah, could be that too. Yeah, I just got another slide here ready of the tunnel. So I guess the tunnel that you saw was more the light type of tunnel, or?
The first one was all dark with a bright light at the end.
Okay.
Very similar to that.
Yeah.
The next one was very blue, almost like you'd picture being inside of a wave.
Oh.
And having a wave curl over you. It looked so bright blue and like I said, a plasma-like feel to it.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's funny because you mentioned the plasma, and when I had my encounter with light beings, I always thought that they look like plasma also. So it's almost like plasma is like this spiritual type component to it as well, maybe, right?
I think that's a good possibility. And the one thing that I've walked away with is the very belief that if you can think it, you can imagine it, it's real. It can happen.
Yeah.
It's existing somewhere. It may not be right here where we can all see it, but it comes from somewhere.
No, that's true, because there's the First Nations saying that goes something like, what the people believe is true. So it's like we're not supposed to underestimate the power of belief, because whatever you believe actually does have some ability to manifest, right?
Absolutely.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I had mentioned to you, what is this a photo of? Or
this one is actually a picture of purgatory. So I was wondering, like, during your experience, did you have any type of purgatory type stuff, or just the basket room?
The basket really didn't occur in a room. That was just sort of as we were walking and viewing the levels.
Okay.
So I can say that in near-death experience, I have never experienced a purgatory. However, I did at one point have a dream, and I have learned from the time I was a little bitty girl to listen to my dreams.
Yeah.
But in this particular dream, this man, I found myself in a room, and this room was odd in the sense that you really couldn't tell where the door or the walls were. If 10 people walked out, you still had no more space to move around. If 20 people walked in, you had no more, no less space to move around. So
Okay.
it was as though it always kept you at this point where you could only pace at a very small, like 1 or 2 steps forward and backward is about all that you could pace.
Wow.
And as I passed into the room, I noticed I could hear all of these people trying to figure out what they were doing there and why they were there and what it was going to take for them to get out.
Wow.
Now, this one man kept passing behind me, and it was giving me kind of a weirded out feeling at the moment. But then he just kind of leaned forward and he asked me, I don't remember the fake names I used last time, but he he leaned forward and he asked me if I knew this girl.
Okay.
This girl's name. And I said, I do know a girl by that name. I didn't know her very well, but I do know a girl by that. It's an unusual name. And he says, would you please tell her Joe said hi and tell her about this room. Tell her what you saw.
Holy.
Okay, I will. So the next thing I know, in the morning I woke up. I decided it's not for me to keep that or to hide, that I should call her mother and tell her mother that I feel that I may have gotten a message for her, but I don't know.
Okay.
And they invited me over quite readily. And I began to explain about this room. Oh, I'm going to back up a second.
Sure.
Because something else happened in that room.
Okay.
Suddenly this door opened like this way. Not open and close the way a normal door would, but up and down.
Like the
and
DeLorean.
As it opened, what's that?
Like the DeLorean car from Back of the Future.
Pretty much. And when it opened, bright light would shine in, and I saw this man step into the room.
Okay.
And then suddenly the door closed. And I looked over at the man, and here this man was, and you probably won't know him either, but it was River Phoenix.
Oh yeah, I know the old actor who used to be in Stand By Me, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I used to watch that in school even. They played it for us.
I enjoyed that movie. It was good. And I loved River. Who didn't?
Yeah, it was a real shame how he died and everything, right?
Well, and that was why I wanted to go back to it, because in the morning when I woke up, I had young children at home at the time. I think I had 3. I have 4 total, but I had 3 at the time, and I'm fixing them breakfast and getting things ready. And I flipped on the TV, and all of a sudden they say, River Phoenix passed away last night, or during the middle of the night, of a drug overdose. And that's when my mouth pretty much hit the floor. That's when I decided this wasn't for me to keep a secret. This was for me to go talk to this woman and her daughter.
Yeah.
So I called them and I went. Now, when I got there, I explained the room and I explained the things I had seen. And I told her about this man that leaned over and told me to go to her. And I can say his name was Joe.
Okay.
And I said, Joe said to tell you he doesn't want you to go to this room. He doesn't want you to end up there. Both mother and daughter burst into tears, and they explained to me that this young lady had just had a very close call with a drug overdose.
Yeah.
She was only about 15, 16 at the time.
Oh my God.
But interestingly enough, Joe wound up being her father, who had died from an overdose when she was 6 months old.
Holy.
So I realized, to me, being in there and what I was feeling was a purgatory of sorts. This was a place where these people went to work through what caused them to be there.
Yeah.
They become free from that place, but they had to figure it out first. They have to come to terms and own their part in what happened.
Yeah. No, we just got a quick question.
Sure.
Cool. I was just going to say we got a quick question from the viewers, and it was right about the topic we're on right now. And it's from Tommy, and he's just wondering, he wanted to ask you was this your purpose for being allowed to come back to tell people, or do you believe that there was a purpose for you to come back?
Well, I think, first of all, the purpose was to be able to see my grandson and be able to spend some time with him. However, the very last thing after I had done the tour, that I call the tour, the very last thing that was said to me was, you need to tell everybody what you've seen.
Wow.
And, I said, people aren't going to believe me. And he says, I didn't say that. I said, tell everyone. And I said, I will. I absolutely will. It doesn't matter if somebody wants to, put me down or whatever. I just don't care, because I have to fulfill that promise. It's the promise I made in coming back.
Well, I'm glad you're back to talk about this. It's some really incredible material, that's for sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Tommy, for that question.
Yeah, we're starting to get quite a bit of viewers tuned in for the show today, so I guess this is a really popular topic.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, I noticed too that when we were prepping for the show, you said that you had some information about ancient languages and standing stones. Did you want to get onto those topics at all, or did you want to say more about near death?
Let me explain a little bit more about near death.
Sure.
And then let's go into that, because one of the things that blew me away, and I've kind of hesitated about speaking about it, because this is where people are really going to have a hard time. Because, yes, there were these amazing levels.
Okay.
Just amazing, and you can ascend up these levels. But as we are walking and looking at these levels, I had to just come to a complete stop and stare at the space in between two levels.
Okay.
Because in that space, in between these two levels, were dimensions, multiple dimensions.
No kidding.
I could see people walking upside down, walking up walls. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
It was unreal to see this multi-dimensional world existing in between these levels.
Yeah.
When we got to the next area, the next level, I looked in between. And in that level, there were people traveling through space and time, like in a blink of an eye. They could leave and be here, go right back.
Wow.
So the entire concept of interdimensional travel, interdimensional space, time travel, these things are all very real. And to me, they were just kind of sci-fi.
Yeah, like a movie.
Until I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really don't think when you're gone for, a minimum of 8 minutes that your brain is firing off sci-fi reels.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think that's what happens. It was just too completely amazing to not see it for what it was.
No kidding. Yeah, actually, it almost triggered a memory for me here. My brother actually had a near-death experience also, and he was in a bike race on a really dangerous cliff that they were racing down, and his bike wiped out, and he flew into a tree, and he managed to hit his femur bone, and it caused a huge bruise and really bad blood clots for quite a while. But he said he actually got a near-death experience where his entire life flashed before his eyes as he was going towards the tree, and it seemed like years and years of time were compressed into a minute. So I was wondering, did you get that at all in your experience or no?
Not in the last two, but in earlier ones. There was one that was probably, I think, around the second one that I had, where I passed through a dark tunnel into light.
Yeah.
That I was led to a council. And there was a council of, there were a number of people around me.
Okay.
And I was shown everything I had done. And I remember that sensation of just pure shame and pure, why aren't I living right? Why aren't I doing things right? Why am I not being the person that I'm meant to be?
Very reflective.
And,
yeah.
It opened my eyes. And that was when I was told to go back. And I did. But, it certainly taught me to make sure that I've got my heart right. Make sure that my heart's in the right place with life. Which is why on Facebook, when you see me hit the peace sign and then hit the little hearts that go around in the circle, that's saying peace and love around the world to me.
Oh, okay.
What that's saying.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, it's a good saying.
That's my thing.
No, it reminds me how you were saying not to have a heavy heart when you die. It's I've been researching Anubis a fair bit, and I guess one of the things he used to do was lead people to a scale where your heart was weighed against a feather. And if your heart weighed more than the feather, then you wouldn't be allowed to pass into the afterlife. So you tried to live with a light heart. And that's where we got the expression living lighthearted came from. So I was wondering, did you see any type of Egyptian gods in this afterlife, or?
I did not see any Egyptian gods in this afterlife. However, we will go back at this point to, not back because we really kind of didn't cover it, but I've had a really weird life. I've had a bizarre life in the sense that my mom was a very free-spirited woman. She could work anywhere she wanted in the nation. I never went to a school more than 2 years out of my life. We were always moving. Everything was always a new adventure.
Yeah, it's tough to make friends that way.
Very tough. However, I've got friends on Facebook that have looked me up from back then.
Oh, cool.
So, it's really nice to have that. But I certainly grew up with massive cultures, a great number of cultures. I lived on the edge of an Indian reservation in Arizona.
Nice.
I've traveled through California. I've done all sorts of things. But at one point in time, I was 16 at the time, my mom had decided to leave our home in Cincinnati, Ohio, and go to this college in Arkansas where she wanted to renew her nurse's license. My father's mother lived a few towns over, and we would often go at least once, twice a week to see her, but that was driving down some pretty crazy back roads, some real lonely and narrow back roads.
Jeez.
But one night we had left her house and we were traveling on this back road, and all of a sudden I was sitting in the front seat next to Mom. My younger sister was in the back seat, and we saw a light just zipping across the sky and then suddenly zip back. And then we saw it slowly descending. And as it descended, it was coming toward us.
It's like a UFO.
It was casting a bright light on us.
Holy.
And then colored lights lit up. And as it moved closer, my mom and I were saying, what is that? Is that a train? Is that a helicopter? We opened our windows. We're not hearing anything. The absolute only thing we ended up hearing was a humming sound, a slight humming sound. And we could feel almost an like your hair standing up on your skin, that sort of a feeling, electrical feeling.
Yeah, like a frequency.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That is exactly what it was. And as this we saw it was a craft. We could, when it got close enough, we could see it was a craft.
Jeez.
As the craft came over, Mom's car just stopped, came to a dead stop. The engine stalled. She couldn't get it restarted. She was starting to panic. And then all of a sudden, I just noticed, I looked at her, and she was just gripping the steering wheel going.
Jeez.
And she just didn't move. She just wasn't moving.
Frozen
My
in
sister
fear.
was in the back seat. She had dove onto the floor and was screaming bloody murder. She was only 11 at the time.
Wow.
Oh, I guess she was 12. But me, I had my face plastered to the windshield. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to see this.
Yeah.
And when I did, and when it came close, I could see this being right in front of me. And this was a gray, if grays could ever be described.
Like a gray alien, you mean? Or?
Yes.
Holy.
Yes. This was a gray. And he talked to me up here. He just...
Like telepathic?
Communicated.
Yeah.
Telepathic. Completely, 100%. And he said, you have nothing to be afraid of. I asked, who are you? And he says, we're you. I said, well, what do you mean you're me? You can't be me, I'm me.
Yeah.
And he says, no, we're your future. We're future you.
Oh.
We are your race in the future.
Yeah, I've heard that theory before, that the gray aliens are actually us at our apex of evolution or whatever, right?
I mean, whether I was being fooled or whether it was real, I don't know, but I can say that it felt very, very real. And he said that we've left you many messages on this earth from your ancient times.
Yeah.
We've left you many messages, but you're not reading it. And that's when I started to take an interest in, well, what's he talking about? What messages have been left? I mean, it took me a while to get to that point of thinking and wondering, just what all he could be talking about.
Yeah,
and the more I see that it's real. Yes, we were an incredibly intelligent ancient civilization. But were we intelligent enough to line up temples along ley lines? Were we intelligent enough to have the energy traveling through those from temple to temple? There are so many coincidences, they may be called,
yeah.
That are far too, I don't know, they're just far too, I just believe that we really have left ourselves messages that we've, especially since I saw this traveling going on in between the dimensions and through time. That's when suddenly things really started to click that, these guys are bringing messages to us. They're telling us, they're giving us the instructions for how we can keep our civilization alive, how we can make things good. And preservation of our history is key. The standing stones are key, which I'm just going to hop in and say, if you don't know Evan and Stephen Strong, please go look them up and sign their petition to keep the standing stones, or to restore the standing stones in Australia. Because those are important, very important to the messages that are being given to us. To this day, I believe that the Native Americans of the Americas, North, Central, and South, all have tremendous information that they've passed on. We just need to open our eyes and open our ears and listen.
Cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I just put a little picture up here on the screen so the viewers can see the standing stones that we're talking about. I don't think these ones are in Australia, but I'll definitely include that in the show description. We'll get that petition in there so we can get some more people to help protect it. But
that would be great.
No, I was just going to add too. It's like, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, it's like you mentioned that they showed you that there's clues hidden in ancient stuff all over the planet, and it's like, man, in my research, that's what I keep finding over and over again. Like the sacred tree tradition, it's pretty much everywhere on the globe, and it's got all these clues to deciphering our ancient history, and even the moon itself. I don't know if you've ever noticed the moon. It has an image of a rabbit and an offering table on it, and that's what a lot of the people in South America believed, and in Asia. So it's like here we got these symbols like right on the moon itself to help us figure out our ancient past. And I can't believe that's what the Greys were telling you about. That's incredible.
I thought it was amazing. Now, it's interesting that my sister to this day is still being visited. I do not recall going on board the craft, but I do know our conversation was somewhat lengthy. My sister said she was being stuck and, poked and prodded.
Jeez.
No, it wasn't good at all. But it's interesting because it turns out my mother had an encounter when she was a young woman and married to my father.
Wow.
So I can't help wonder if she wasn't one of their experiments, so to speak.
Jeez.
I don't know. We don't know. We can only speculate. But there's certainly something that there's a reason that they pull certain people on board.
Yeah.
Where they stop and talk to people. There's a reason for that.
Jeez. So were you able to see any advanced technology in this ship at all, like control panels or holograms or anything like that?
Holograms, yes.
Really?
I did not get to see the control panel other than, well, I don't want to say I didn't get to see it because I saw it, but it wasn't like, let's put our hands out and pull back and do, it was almost like, again, a telepathic.
Yeah.
Either that or he was just not touching anything, but everything they were doing was telepathic.
No, that makes
Everything
sense, yeah.
he said.
Now, the latest technology for controlling vehicles, like driving, they've been able to implant implants into people's brains and have them control the vehicles just with their thoughts. So it's interesting how, like, we're almost reaching the point to catching up to that technology that you saw in the UFO, right?
Yeah, that's one technology I don't think I want to be a part of.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't want anybody implanting anything in me.
No, I'll
to
stick
me,
with the steering wheel.
This alone is enough of a mark that says, yeah, follow me, listen to me, because, I'm inviting the man into my home.
Yeah. Now, just to get back a little bit to the standing stones, it's I like to research those as well. And my latest project is a place up north. We call it the Canadian Stonehenge, and it's some stones that have been propped up on like little balance stones, and it's like a really old site going back like 10,000 years approximately. So it's like this topic of standing stones is definitely really important to me.
It is. And I know that archaeologists will say, it's to follow the star systems. And yes, they are. Many of them are aligned to star systems. Yeah. But I think it's so much bigger. I think it has a lot to do with carrying over energy. But that's our history right there that we need to know, we need to understand, because we're not going to keep improving when we sit at home with a box on our head and don't want to know or don't want to live outside of our own little comfort zone.
Yeah, no, I've encountered that a lot when I'm doing research with people, like some ideas and some people's work in general, it's just people just turn their eyes and look the other way. It's like if they don't agree with it, they're just going to shut it out, right? Even if it has like the most incredible information, people sometimes get really biased about what they are willing to accept, sort of thing.
Right, exactly.
I was wondering...
go ahead.
I was just going to ask, one of my favorite standing stones is Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. It's like, have you heard about that much, or... What did the ancients tell you about them?
I actually, Turkey's probably one of my big interests right now because so many things are being found there.
Yeah.
My son-in-law, the father of the baby that I met before he was born, is an archaeologist, and he's been dying to get into actually doing it. And my daughter is studying Arabic right now. She can speak many languages, but Turkey is it's just a wealth of knowledge and information there. Yeah. I think Turkey, Australia, Egypt, but right now Tepe, I'm sorry, not
Göbekli Tepe, yeah.
Not Göbekli Tepe, but right, in Turkey, the things that are being uncovered, the water systems that were used, that alone is amazing. So I have a friend who's an archaeologist from Turkey on Facebook, and I follow his work very closely.
Nice. Now, I used to think, like when I first got into this research, that Iraq was pretty much the main area that the Sumerians and all this ancient stuff is happening, but the more and more I've been researching it, it's like that area of where the influence was keeps growing bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like now I'm starting to find evidence of Sumerians in Bulgaria and Armenia, and it's like even in, like you were saying, like Australia and places like that, I think we've really underestimated how how big the influence was that the ancients had. And if it wasn't just the Sumerians, maybe there was another culture like the Atlanteans or the Minoans people talk about. But I think we've tried to put them in a small little area, and we're starting to learn that it was actually a lot bigger. Huh?
I agree. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that, I'm hoping that scholars will start to actually get into attempting to translate the scripts.
Yeah.
I just read an article the other day that was like, it was about the flying machines.
Okay.
That, are pictured in...
Oh, the Vimanas from the Vedic text?
Well, not just the Vimana, but you know how they have carved in the stones the flying machines. One looks like a helicopter, another looks like a plane.
Abydos in Egypt, I think it is, right?
Ah, glad you remembered. Thanks, I'm getting old.
No problem. I'll agree there.
But, in this article it says, oh, well, that's just because the king was trying to wipe out the king's son was wiping out his father's name, so he just went over the top of it. I'm like, really?
No,
really?
I think that's...
Okay, you want me to believe that?
Well, the funniest part about that whole explanation is in Egypt, they're always telling us that the carvings on the walls show exactly how the pyramids were built, and even though it doesn't really add up, that we should just believe it. And on the other side, they're saying that the ruins were carved out over and over again and changed to different images. So it's like, well, which are we supposed to believe? That it's the old ones or the new ones? Or like, I don't understand what's going on with Egyptology sometimes. It's a bit weird, right? Contradicting.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, in this encounter, did they give you any information about like the symbols that we find on these standing stones? I noticed that serpents seem to be a pretty common theme.
Serpents are.
Yeah,
and
this
serpents,
one's from England or Ireland, I believe.
And aren't serpents, Sherry would know this better, aren't serpents key to discussion of the seed, of the planting of the seed?
Yeah,
I believe.
The biggest thing I've heard with serpents is usually a correlation to Draco, or sometimes also with the Magi wing disc symbol that's on my show there. Those two little ropes that come down at the end of the wing discs are called the serpents of knowledge, and they're supposed to be the same serpents that were from the Garden of Eve, how Eve was tempted with the serpent or whatever. So it's like, it almost seems like one of those multi-layer symbols where it has so many different meanings, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So I guess no real clue that they gave you at all to help decipher what these standing stones are for, right?
Other than we need to stop saying or thinking that they're all left by ancients and or they're left by aliens, and instead realize they're left by us.
Yeah.
They're left by us who traveled back from our future generations and left them for us. I mean, there's a reason why they spoke of the winged gods coming to this earth. There's a reason for these things. And after having met this one being, otherworldly being or future being, I couldn't imagine anything other than it was important that we figure this out because it's the key to our survival.
Yeah.
It's the key to keeping our world going.
Yeah, that probably could be.
If they've been forced to have to leave this planet, which in a way makes sense given the fact that their physical appearance, if they were forced to have to leave, it makes sense that they would come back and try to correct what's going on.
Yeah, keep us on track or something, right?
Right. Try to change their futures.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe if it'd be all right if we got onto the ancient text part of it. You mentioned that you had symbol knowledge, or you wanted to talk about that a bit?
I don't. I'm sorry. No, I just think that that's also included in a very strong part of what needs to be studied. There are, I believe, I don't even know the number, but a tremendous amount of Sumerian texts alone that they can't even get around to interpreting them, because there's so many and so few people who are capable of doing that.
Yeah.
And I think if we were to look back at the ancient Sumerian texts, we would have a tremendous amount of knowledge.
Yeah, this is a picture I put up on the screen of one of the earlier forms of Sumerian language. And it's weird how they kind of went in cycles. You know how everyone says that time goes in cycles? Well, it almost seems like their writing system did as well. They started off with more like pictograph, like pictures of stuff, like Egyptian type writing. And they eventually evolved into the cuneiform text. See if I have one here. Yeah, just like complex system of triangles. And then eventually they ended up going back to the Egyptian version where they started using symbols again, or pictographs. So I was like, it's weird how languages keep going in cycles like that, and there's all these little hidden clues, it seems, right in our languages, right?
Exactly. We're doing it today through emojis.
Yeah, we went in another cycle.
One day they're going to say, what the hell was that? What are they trying to say?
No, it's kind of neat. This is one of my latest projects I've been working on. Is actually I've been studying the cave art in Bulgaria, because a lot of people, well, not a lot, I guess a small amount of people, believe that the ancient Bulgarians were the Sumerians. And it's funny because the town next to where this cave art is from is actually called Sumer, and it's so old no one knows where the name came from. And I was like, you don't know where the name Sumer comes from? Like, jeez. But anyways, so this symbol here in the top left was the cave art. And it was interesting how that was like the letter A back then. And you can track the evolution, how it's like the cave art had the letter A as like a Y with two lines on it. Then the Sumerians with their cuneiform drew it as two triangles with a line. And you can see the Phoenician version, how they drew the A sideways. And I was like always wondering, like, why did the Phoenicians do that? And then it wasn't until I compared it to the Egyptian version of the letter A that I realized the Phoenicians put it sideways so that it looked more like the bird's beak, right?
Oh, yeah.
So then that same symbol for A ended up getting changed into like a T-type symbol in Slavic languages, and then it became our letter A. And then it's funny how if you look at the standing, like the long man in England, he's like this ancient guy that the Druids think to put there. His shape almost matches the A too, like the shape in between his legs, the two pillars are the pillars of the A. So it's like we have all these ancient clues right in our very languages that could help us solve like the mysteries we've been all looking for. It's like right in front of our face the whole time, right?
Exactly.
No, and who is it? Richard Casaro does some work with Adept Initiates too, and he talks all about this symbology as being the God self icon. And I found it interesting that the Bulgarians had the same idea, that this was the symbol for the ancient symbol for God. So,
oh wow.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, like just tracing how like A goes to winged disc. It's kind of weird how we're actually starting to put all the pieces together to line everything up now. Where before we had no idea how the cave art evolved into the letter A, right?
Right.
So I don't know what the future holds for these people studying languages, but like you were saying, like we got to start looking at these old tablets like the cuneiform stuff and really start getting people interested in it, because this is what our future is going to be all about, I have a feeling.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to mention Evan and Stephen Strong, because it should be Stephen and Evan, Stephen's dad and Evan's son. They've lived in Australia and the outback for a very long time.
Nice.
But they've got some pretty amazing findings, including skulls that were found at their standing stones.
What, the elongated skulls?
Are in the shape rectangularly elongated. So going back, like flat, and going back straight.
Jeez. Yeah, that's a little bit different.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I mean, their entire research and lives have been spent on this, and I think it's well worth listening to, and certainly supporting the petition to keep their standing stones. They were moved. They were already pulled down for new development to go in, but Stephen and Evan had cataloged all of them, marked their positions, and are capable of being able to erect it right back.
Jeez.
So we just need to stop this development from happening and ruining sacred land of the Aboriginals. So.
No, it's a weird tradition that seems like has been picking up around the planet, where people are trying to go around and smash and destroy all the old relics, almost like we heard in the Bible how it's like some of these ancient pagan traditions were supposed to be wiped out, and people are still doing it to this day, right? Like you got the different artifacts and museums in Iraq, I believe, where they were destroyed. It's a real shame, but, yeah. So how long ago was the standing stones in Australia discovered? This must be a recent discovery, or like I guess 50 years ago or so?
You know, I couldn't tell you, honestly. I don't remember when they first found it. I happened upon them somewhere, a Facebook, YouTube, and I started watching and, became friends with, Stephen doesn't have a big page, but Evan does, and I became friends with Evan and started reading all about it. And since then, he was on Watchers Talk. They were on Watchers Talk. They speak at conferences, and they're doing everything they can to try to save this site. And the thing is that while they haven't exactly said why it's so important, they keep saying this has everything to do with the importance of all mankind.
Yeah.
And that's all they need to say to me, because I have no problem believing that everything we have, ancient historical megaliths, petroglyphs, geoglyphs, all were made to teach us.
Yeah.
And when you're destroying them, you're taking away who we are.
Yeah, it's true. No, it reminds me too of the old saying, the Crazy Horse First Nations guy used to say that the sacred tree was an ancient symbol that was going to return one day and reunite mankind into like a new golden age sort of thing. So it's like I'm wondering maybe if that's what the whole goal of our planet was to go through these phases where we were at a peak and then we fall and then we come back to a peak again, sort of like the ongoing cycle, right? People shouldn't try to get too down on all the tough times we're going through now, that hopefully there is like another golden age right on the verge that we're going to be going into. Is that what you think? Or do you,
I do think we are. I do think we're about to go into it. I think there is a gathering taking place right now. The gathering being people who are open-minded and who are ready to receive truth. Will be receiving truth. It's amazing just in the past year how many people I have met, talked to, and been able to discuss these sort of things with that I never ever would have been able to before.
No, we're really lucky that way, because just like maybe 10 or 20 years ago, it was really only the skeptics or the naysayers that had a floor to speak. But now that the internet is up here, it's like the people that are more open-minded and aren't going to be as skeptical are actually getting a chance to get their voice heard now. Where in the past it was just never that way, right?
Right, exactly. Last year, I guess it was probably June of last year, and I do want to tell you that after the near-death experience 4 years ago,
Yeah.
my grandson was born 3 years later. So last year he wasn't even one yet. He wasn't even 6 months. I guess he maybe was right around 6 months old. But it took me that long to recover, to be able to walk, talk, think,
Wow.
and do again, because it had done so much damage, having massive seizures, and just it was a mess. I was a mess.
Yeah.
In and out of nursing homes and in and out of the hospital. But once I got myself back, once I got strong again, I had finally moved into a room, renting a room from somebody, and was starting to really get into Facebook and starting to look at things. And I tried for a contest to win a cruise on the Ancient Aliens cruise.
Wow, that'd be awesome.
And me, I mean, you could take 200 people and put them at an event and give away 199 t-shirts, and I'm the one going home without the t-shirt.
Oh, no.
Plain and simple. I just don't have that, I don't have luck. Well, I'll be darned if I didn't get that phone call that I had won that trip.
What?
And could take one person with me, and I turned to my daughter and I said, do you want to go? And it was hard for her to leave her 6-month-old baby for a week, but she went with me.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
this was something that we got to sit down at dinner with Eric Von Daniken and discuss.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask. I seen that picture on your Facebook page, and I was like, is that real? Did you really get to meet him?
Oh, yeah. Meet him, have dinner with him, have drinks with him. I mean, sit and just chat. And,
Yeah, that's awesome.
He is an amazing, humble, sweet man. But the one thing that I think he was very misunderstood, continues to be misunderstood about, is that when he talks about chariots of the gods,
Yeah.
and refers to the gods, it isn't that he doesn't believe in God, because he very much does. He's very much a believer in sort of what I believe in, sort of a big, much bigger picture than just one thing. There is one God that created many worlds, that created many beings, and that's sort of the way that Eric thinks too. He believes, much like I do, that there are malevolent and benevolent beings out in the cosmos. Are they all trying to come to us? Probably not. It's a vast, 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 many universes, not just one universe, many universes.
Yeah.
So, are they all after us? Probably not.
No, I don't think so
Have
either.
they been here? Yeah, exactly. But have they been here? Again, ancient cave drawings are showing us. Ancient stones are showing us that there have been people here. And I had mentioned to Eric in conversation, I told him about my experience on the craft, or with the craft, when I was 16.
No kidding.
And he said to me, so who do you think they were? I said, they're my grandcestors. And he says, that's funny, because that's the word I use.
Oh, no kidding.
And it wasn't long after I returned home from the trip that I was listening to Leonard O'Neill talk on YouTube, and he says, our grandcestors, and I said, LOL, that's the word I use.
Yeah, that's a
so
good
there's
word.
a lot of us out there who are talking about our grandcestors.
Yeah.
But yes, I did. That was a real trip, and got to sit and talk and meet with Nick Redfern and Micah Hanks.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I like
Very
Nick
cool.
Redfern. He's one of my favorite guests. He did a book on the Men in Black that I thought was incredible.
That was great. Yeah, he gave me a couple copies of books that he has and signed them, and Eric
Nice.
signed his book. Eric gave me a copy of Chariots of the Gods. He gave me 2 of the pins, lapel pins that he wears on the show, on the Ancient Aliens show. Giorgio always wears one too. But
oh yeah, that little toy figure that looks like a space shuttle sort of thing, right?
Right.
Yeah,
They look like airplanes, kind of. But yeah, they gave me some of those. And then my absolute best friend soulmate on there that was with the Ancient Aliens team would have been Ramon. Ramon is Eric's assistant, research assistant, and assistant. And it's kind of funny because I didn't know who he was when I met him. I was standing out on the deck and had a drink in my hand and I was just sitting there, and the doors opened up and he walked through, and it was one of those where our eyes just met, and he came up to me and I went to him, and he's just a kid. He's 33, I think 34. And we just threw our arms around each other and hugged, and he's like, I've been waiting to see you again. And I said, that's how I feel. And we just he was on his honeymoon. Well, actually, it was like 2 months after the honeymoon. They were considering it their honeymoon, he and Corolla. And they spent quite a bit of time with us, and we just got to talk for hours on end.
Wow, that's
and Micah
cool.
Micah would lead us up to the top of the ship at night, and we'd star search and talk about the constellations. And so that was my big win in life.
No, I'm really glad that you were the one who won that trip. I can't think of a better person or more deserving to go on that trip. It's like, man, that's really awesome. It worked out that way for a change for you, right?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask too. It's like, what are your next plans for like projects? Are you going to be sharing the near-death experience stuff on the Facebook group and continuing to do shows talking about it, or what are your plans?
I am in the process of writing a book about it.
Nice.
But it's rapidly turning into a book about my life because it's kind of hard to explain how you get to that point without describing everything that happened beforehand.
Oh yeah, I can relate to that one.
Yeah, so it's turning far more into an autobiography than it is into just discussing, two of 6 near-death experiences.
Wow. Well, I'm glad that you're working on that. It's like, if you ever want to come back on the show and promote your book, give you the floor anytime you need it.
Oh, awesome.
Cool.
That'd be great.
So I guess, would people want to get a hold of you? Is it best to contact you on the near-death experience page or just on your Facebook, or I guess either's fine?
I think either or. My near-death experiences, ends with an S, is my page. Okay. But yes, Kindra Morgan Nappo is my profile. By all means, you can contact me either way. I'm not going to lie to you. I do vet all of my friend requests.
Cool.
I get probably 6 men who work on oil rigs in their military uniforms every day, and we have absolutely nothing in common. And
I always wondered if women were getting those messages too, because we get the same as guys. It's like some girl who wants to talk to you that's in the military, and she just needs you to send her one little gift card of money so that you can talk to her. It's like, it's too much what Facebook has turned into. Right? Yeah.
I bet. I absolutely, and plus I also have my own group, but that's called the Paranormal. Let me see if I can remember the names of my own group.
Sure.
Paranormal, Unusual. I don't know.
Oh yeah. I did follow the link to that one earlier today. I'll make sure to include it in the show notes after too. I'll add that one to it also.
That'd be great. That would be really great because I would love for people to be able to come and take a look at that, because that's another place where we're able to discuss things like spirit-bound individuals.
Yeah.
That's something else I have experience with, and my entire family has had experience with. We come from a long line of women who have very unusual experiences.
No kidding. No,
Yeah.
maybe the future is going to be bright with everyone coming forward to share their experiences. Like, I know my brother warns me not to talk about it too much, saying that I sound crazy to people, but it's like, I don't know, it's part of who I am, and I'm not just going to keep rejecting who I am my whole life. So it's like, some people are going to like you, some aren't. It's part of life, right? You can't please everyone. So,
Right.
yeah, I'm glad more people are coming out with their information and getting the word out there. It's like, the future is really starting to look bright now, I think. Yeah.
I agree. You know, from the time I was a little bitty girl and things would happen, my mother would always, I would start talking and telling her friends at parties or whatever. And my mom would just kind of be like, oh, she has a beautiful imagination. Honey, go. And later she'd pull me aside and say, don't talk about things like that. People will think you're nuts. I'm like, Mom, it's the truth. She goes, I know it's the truth, but people don't get that.
Yeah.
And I really thought everybody had experiences like I had. I thought everybody could hear other people's thoughts, could move things at times. I mean, I had all kinds of weird things happening. And I thought that everybody was like that. And it took a long time before I realized that doesn't happen to just everybody. And to not talk about it means I'm not being true to myself. It means I'm ignoring it and not giving it any credit. And credit goes where credit belongs. Not to me, because that credit isn't mine. That credit's upstairs. That is in heaven. That is with my Father.
Yeah, exactly. No, I was just going to do a little review on the chat here to see what other messages we got, since wasn't able to get it going on the screen the whole time. And it looks like there's a guy named Rich here who said that he was also blessed to be on the cruise with you.
He was with me. Hi, Rich.
Okay, so yeah, that was Rich's comment there. And yeah, we got a bunch of other comments, but not really too many questions. So I guess I'll leave the rest of those comments to people can check them out after on the show. Yeah, that's what I was planning on doing.
Oh, and Sherry did post. She posted the Australian Heritage Project or protection of Australia's Stonehenge. Thank you for doing that, Sherry.
All right.
I just can't even speak enough to ask and ask everybody to go sign that petition.
Yeah.
It's really not a big deal to just go sign a petition.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, after this show's done, I'll make sure to add that to the description and see if I can help share it into some groups that'll help some people sign that petition too, because that's a really good cause.
Yeah, it definitely is. Okay. Absolutely.
Is there any last comments or points that you wanted to make or anything that you wanted to promote before I let you go? I guess we're getting a little bit over the hour-and-a-half mark now.
I know that I've given you guys a lot to think about today, and I really do want everybody to understand that I don't want you to just believe me. I don't want you to just say, oh, well, she said it. It was on Facebook. It must be true.
Yeah.
I'd really, really prefer you to pray on it if prayer is what you do. Meditate on it if meditation is what you do. I personally do both. I am a strong believer. I showed this last time, but I do have my crystals.
Nice.
Behind me, which is now kind of, right here it is, is my Himalayan salt rock lamp.
Oh, cool.
I've got my dream catcher up there.
Yeah.
I believe in it all, brother. I believe in it all.
No, it's funny. Your room there looks just like my room because I got the amethyst crystal next to me and the dream catcher. And I don't have any butterflies, but
yeah, I love butterflies. So had to brighten it up somehow.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, and I guess for future projects too, you're going to be coming up on that the Watchers Talk for a part 2 coming up soon, is it? Or
I sure will be.
Nice.
Absolutely.
And what are you
Next
guys?
week.
Oh, nice. What are you guys planning on talking about for that show? Still the near-death stuff, or?
I think yes. I think we're. I didn't go into the levels or into the in between that I did here with you today. So I'm sure that's part of what we will be discussing.
Nice.
But also going into this thing that I call a very weird life because of the fact that, like I said, we're just. I just really thought I was like any average girl anywhere else in the world, and I am, but I'm one that when I go to sleep at night and I dream, I pay attention.
Yeah.
If I have a dream that occurs 3 nights in a row, and those ones will be like you're watching a third of a movie, press pause, go right into the second part, press pause, and then go into the third part. Those are the dreams that I go, whoa, it's time to really stop and listen to what this is telling me.
Yeah, that's really awesome. My work actually focuses a lot on dreams too. My grandmother from Ukraine, she used to be a dream interpreter, like a mystic, and she was actually sentenced to death for it. So that's how she ended up here in Canada in the escape process.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I inherited a little bit of the gift, and when I was a kid I didn't really notice it as much, but as I've gotten older, it's like like the same thing you described, how you'll have like 3 dreams that go in succession, or you'll have repeating dreams, and usually those ones are the ones that have messages, or sometimes you'll have a dream where it's like you're in a different point of view for a camera. So instead of looking through your eyes, you're looking at like a 3D perspective above head, and it's like I noticed that usually seems to mean that it's a vision rather than just a dream. So it's like maybe we can get you back on the show to just talk about dream work sometime. I'd love to hear more about what you have to say about that.
Oh, got a million of them.
Nice.
And I have one I'm dying to get help with because I think I have an idea of what I'm being told, but it's sort of a foreign subject to me because it has to do with India, and I believe Hamsa. I didn't even know what Hamsa was.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
And that's the hand with the eye.
Oh, yeah.
On it.
No kidding.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was, but it was in a 3-part dream that was like that, and to this day I really look forward to somebody that.
Sorry, I was just going to say, have you ever heard about the legendary Dreamer's Rock that we have here in Canada, or no?
No.
Holy cow.
I haven't. Tell me.
I'll have to send you the link because it's kind of a long story, but basically the creator put a special rock that unlocks the ability, like if you go to sleep or fast on this rock, that you're able to contact the creator. And that creator gave the abilities to like heal. I think in one case he actually taught one of the First Nations guys how to build a totem pole and erect it to the solstice markers or stuff. So it's like some of this stuff that's been going on in this legendary Dreamer's Rock is really important for people all around the world who are into dreaming. So hoping maybe I'll do an episode on that and try to get the word out there. My First Nations friend Kevin Najawan, he's going to try to get me a bit of a tour on the island this year. Keeping my fingers crossed it goes through, because I've traveled there a couple times already and we never got to try the Dreamer's Rock, so keeping my fingers crossed. And I'll send that link to you, and maybe I'll include it in the show notes too. If anyone's into dreaming, it's like the legendary Dreamer's Rock on Manitoulin Island is pretty much the coolest legend you could ever find.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I would love to read about that.
Okay, cool.
I can't believe I hadn't heard of it.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that I hadn't heard of it either. And it's like, it was actually my dreams that started showing me visions about taking a ferry to a place. And then eventually I found out that ferry was going to Manitoulin Island. And that's how one thing led to another. And I eventually found out about the legend. So, yeah, it's a pretty wild experience. And, yeah, maybe we can get a whole show going on dreams sometime in the future. That'd be pretty awesome. But I really like the near-death experience topic, too. I learned a ton of information on this show. I'm really glad that you managed to make it back to tell everyone what you had to say, right?
Thank you. Well, just to share what I saw and to share what I was told. that's the important thing. Trust me, brother, it's got nothing to do with me. I'm not here to make money. I'm not here to, I'm just here to be with my grandson. So I was asked one thing, and I'm just fulfilling a promise.
No, it's like if it's fame and fortune that you're looking for, talking about this stuff is probably one of the last things you'd want to do.
Exactly. That's for sure.
Cool. All right, well, Kindra, it was really nice to meet you, and I'm hoping to get you back on the show soon, and I look forward to watching the next interview you do with the Watchers. I'm really looking forward to that. It sounds really cool.
Thank you so much, Leland. I appreciate being invited to the Magi Show and love your work, and
thanks.
I'll keep following.
Okay, cool. Really appreciate it, and I'll try not to forget to send you that link as soon as we're done here.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
All right, have a good night, and hopefully that storm isn't too bad for you for the rest of the day, right?
Yeah, it's getting dark out there already, but I think it's supposed to go on till at least midnight. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a bad one. It's a bad blizzard.
Yeah. All right, thanks again for being on the show. Nice to meet you. Take care.
You too. Bye, Leland. Good night, everybody.
Bye. Let's see. Skype. Right, everyone. That was Kindra I had on the show. I'd like to thank everyone for sticking with the show here. We had a little bit of a glitch there going at one point, but managed to still get most of the questions in, I hope. And if anyone else had some questions that we didn't address during the show, if you just want to jump into the chat, and I'll try to maybe answer some of the questions, or I'm sure Kindra is going to be checking out the chat too, so you can probably ask her a few more questions in there. Or definitely just jump into her Facebook pages and get all that going. So, all right. So I think that's just about everything I wanted to cover on the show for today. I'm just going to check, make sure I didn't have any other notes that I wanted to get across. Well, the end of the music for the show today was a little bit louder than I expected. All right, I'm awake now. All right, so just in time, I got to actually run off, everyone. So I'm going to do a radio show at CKWR tonight, and tonight's show topic is going to be about a UFO, or not a UFO, but a plane that went missing, and it had to do with UFOs possibly. So if anyone wants to hear some more, if you hadn't had enough of me talking tonight, just tune in at 10:30 p.m. Eastern, CKWR 98.5. And don't worry, you don't have to live close to hear the radio show. You can just jump onto the website. We got the live stream going there too. All right, yeah, I think that's about all. So thanks everyone for watching, and I really appreciate if you could share the show. Sharing the show makes a big difference because Facebook's really strict these days, and they don't let you share stuff as much as they used to, so without getting in Facebook jail. So yeah, if anyone can help share it, I really appreciate it. And yeah, that was Kindra. Yeah, hopefully we can get her back on the show to talk about dreams and such in the future. See if I got her picture there. Yeah, there it is. Alright, so thanks again to Kindra for coming on the show. Thanks to all the viewers, and have a good night, everyone. Take care.
The Magi Show was brought to you by the Milky Way. I hate this galaxy.